Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the moderator of Going Global, Scaling Local Partnerships in Health, Education, and Community Development, correspondent for The Guardian, Helena Smith, and our distinguished panel.
So, it's working. Perhaps we should start out by my introducing this distinguished panel. To my right, of course, is the Mayor of Athens, Georgios Kaminis. To his right is the CEO and Chairman of the Concordia Summit, Nicholas Logothetis. To my left is David Simas, who is the CEO of the Obama Foundation. And to his left is Alexandros, please help me with your surname, Alexandros.
Kambouroglou.
Kambouroglou, who heads the Athens Partnership here in the Greek capital. And we are, as you will know, going to talk today about the efficacy of public-private partnerships, which of course is very dear as a concept to the heart of the Concordia Summit and Nicholas Logothetis in particular, and the gap they have filled here in Greece. And perhaps at this point I should say a little add that in a way there's no better place for this conversation to be happening today than Athens, because in many ways Greece itself presents virgin territory for this concept, public-private partnerships, to take root and to change mindsets, lives, state entities, the efficiency with which public government works, and the effect that the private sector can have on it. The post-crisis, Greece, many ills have been exposed here in Greece, not least the public sector, which was proved to be gargantuan, unwieldy, prone to corruption and rot of various kinds. Perhaps we should, and of course, perhaps one last thing I should just say is the collapse of the Greek state, in a way, its economic travails, also exposed this pervasive lack of trust in Greece, which emerged as one of the great moral themes as a result of the country's struggle to keep bankruptcy at bay. So let's turn to the mayor, to Georgios Kaminis, and ask him about the challenges Athens has been facing in recent years, most notably the economic hardship, the refugee crisis. It's been the epicenter of both on the continent of Europe, and how public-private partnerships working in cahoots with the municipality has been able to rise to the challenges that these two crises have presented.
Well, yes, thank you for the invitation, first of all. Well, about the economic crisis, we have spoken a lot, I think. So it has been our main problem during the first years. Now I'm on my second mandate. And during the first mandate, what we try to do is make economies and try to do many things at the same time, because at the same time, the central government, many administrative structures had collapsed. So we should, at the same time, take care of the poor people, the people in need, but be innovative. For us, it has been very important to adopt innovative ideas. And our normal tool, our own public administration, has suffered from cumbersome procedures, very complex procedures. And the main issue was to do things in a very quick way, and at the same time, assure financing tools. So creating our private-public partnership, the Athens Partnership, was very, very important, because at the same time, we assured the necessary money without having to go through the complex administrative channels. And the second thing was to make innovative approaches and projects in many aspects, not only the philanthropic one, and try to scale up things then to the whole municipality and the government. And collaborating with private partners, you learn a lot from them, but they, at the same time, they realize how complex is the situation in a city like Athens.
Have you again and again encountered this pervasive lack of trust that citizens have in government here and in the state, in the private philanthropic community? A mistrust about, if they dig deep into their pockets, what is going to happen with the donations that they make?
Unfortunately, that has been a problem. And the answer to that is only one answer, transparency. You have to be very, very transparent in what you do, so that people who have second thoughts about why private donors can come and make their offers, so that you can do your job. So transparency is the main tool that you have. And at the same time, by showing how things should be done, using the capacities and the advantages of the private sector, doing things quickly, having, the services of private expertise that you cannot find in our own administration, and we cannot hire people because of the constraints, the financial constraints. So by showing results to the society, little by little, you overcome this problem. I don't find now any obstacle, any problem with this kind of working together with private donors and creating this private partnership through our Athens Partnership.
Which perhaps we should move on to Alexandros. Could you, Alexandros, tell us a little bit, given that the Athens Partnership is working so closely with the City Hall and with Mayor Kaminis, describe in some detail how your projects work and what sort of projects you've got off the ground, and how they're changing lives in real terms in the almost 2 years since the Athens Partnership began.
Okay, no problem. Well, the partnership is positioned right between city government, the municipality of Athens, and the private sector, in a perfect way to interact between the two and to leverage their resources and strengths of each side. And the result is something that, in my experience, is bigger than what either side could have accomplished on their own. Specifically, we work with priority projects that the city understands as priority, the mayor. All the projects are clearly nonpartisan, and everybody agrees they're important to the community. So we're serving real priorities. And the process through which we work leads to philanthropic money being investment in doing work, not to bypass government or to add to something that the government can't do, but to work with government. And when you work with government, the effects are, I call it it's a multiplier, because there's nobody who's bigger than government. The scope of government is so big that once you can get government to work effectively and efficiently, the impact is a lot bigger than any one foundation or single donor could have achieved. So specifically, we work with the city to perfectly or ideally design projects, projects that will have a beginning, middle, and an end, so that they will be actionable. We help the city bring in good personnel, people use a skill set that perhaps is not available. And we work with the city to deliver these, whatever they are, projects. And they can vary from, renovating public schools or creating educational initiatives or interventions to creating new platforms for social delivery systems that the city has, or setting up, hopefully innovative ways of coordinating response to the refugee crisis.
So are they really changing lives? I mean, the point of governance, local governance or national governance, is to ultimately improve people's lives. You wouldn't believe it at times here in Greece, but that is the point. Are these projects changing lives for the better?
Well, I would invite anyone to look more closely into the projects that we're working on. It's not easy to respond with a yes or a no. What I can say is that built into what we do is the tracking of the projects and constant evaluation. And we've been doing this for less than 2 years, so it's too early to say if we've changed the Athens. That's probably not going to be the case. But yes, we are changing lives.
Yes.
And
most of all, through innovative approaches and policies. The most important thing now, actually, in Greece is to show people that things can be done in another way, to do things in another way, because we went bankrupt, among other things, because of the routine, because of the procedures that we followed were very, very obsolete. Now, through innovative projects, you can show to the people that things can change. It is very important because it's directly from a city to its citizens. Such a thing a state can never do it, have a direct effect and a direct contact with people. We know our cities, we know the needs. So if we bring together private, donors, civil society, the central government, and the municipality, you create there a pool of force, let's say vital force for the city, and show, and I insist on that we can change the country.
So these projects, these cross-sector collaborations, can actually, in your view, Mayor Kaminis, be replicated elsewhere in Greece
and scaled
effectively
up.
And scaled up.
And scaled up at the same time. Just replicated, and of course here we have the mayor of Thessaloniki, Mr. Boutaris. We have collaborated a lot, and innovative projects that we have, we share them immediately with Thessaloniki and vice versa.
Right. So they're not only building up trust in citizens, in state bodies, but also you're suggesting really going to some extent to changing mindsets.
Yes, building hope.
Building hope.
Yeah, if I could just interject. Thank you, Helena, for doing this. I'm Nick Logothetis. I'm the co-founder and chairman of Concordia. Thank you all for being here. It's a great honor for me to be here today with the mayor, someone I respect and admire a great deal for what he's done here and what he continues to do, and with David Simas, who's been a really great friend of ours and has done amazing work in the United States and around the world, and with my friend Alexandros, who is on the front lines of really changing the narrative when it comes to what public-private partnerships can do in a place like Greece. The work that the mayor and Alexandros are doing are changing lives, and you don't have to just change a life by building a school or by building a church or by painting a decrepit basement, all of which are important and all of which you do. But most importantly, in my opinion, in a place like Greece today, hope is what is most important. Dignity is what is most important. And this is a big part of what you are doing here. And so I, sort of wearing my Libra Group hat, have been the #1 fan of what you guys have done here. And we want to support it as much as we can, and we have. And it's great to see. There's a lot of negative news that comes out of Greece, as you might have noticed, but this is really a shining positive light, and so it was really our honor here to showcase what you've done. Alexandros, you've got to be less modest and more, you've got to sell it more. Give your website, tell people where they can find more information, because it's really a really great, sort of light for what's happening in Athens.
Yeah, Nick always says that, because when we talk about what we're doing, people say, well, you live in a bubble. And the reality is that we don't live in a bubble. We live in the municipality of Athens. We see all the big, major problems. But we're making significant progress. So you have to be helpful and not sound like you're crazy. So please, the site is athenspartnership.org, and you can get a sense of the projects there.
Perhaps we should let David Simas speak. He's traveled a long way to attend this panel. And David, you're very fond of citing Frederick Douglass, the American abolitionist.
His good work is being recognized more and more every day.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Perhaps you want to quote him here.
So when I think about the United States, and even landing here in Greece and seeing what's happening around the world, the fact that you began with trust is the most important piece for any discussion. The quote from Douglass is, "Trust is the foundation of any society. Without truth, there can be no trust. And without trust, there can be no society. Where there is society, there is truth, and where there is trust, there's something to build upon." In the United States in 1984, when you asked people whether or not they generally trusted their fellow American to do the right thing, the number was over 50%. In 2014, when you asked that question, the number was at 30% and falling. Every single institution in the United States, save three, the military, police, and small business, have trust ratios over 50%. Everything else, down to the low teens and into the 20s. Newspapers, 20%. Big business, 21%. Organized labor, 22%. Congress, 7%. The United States presidency, 36%. The United States Supreme Court in the 30s. Across the board, what you just see is this increasing deterioration. In that environment, it creates a culture where essentially it's easy to turn people against one another. Me against you, you against me, this side versus that side. The one aspect of society, at least in the United States, where there is this residue of trust is at the local level. The closer you come to where the action is occurring, the greater confidence people have in the ability for you to do that. So, when you think about public-private partnerships, I'm just going to talk about My Brother's Keeper for 1 second. My Brother's Keeper was an initiative of the Obama administration that was focused specifically on young men and boys of color, underinvestment, undereducated, over-incarcerated. The costs through society are incalculable. Rather than just a one-size, top-down federal program, what we decided to do was to do a challenge with mayors throughout the United States to say, if you focus on these 6 discrete moments in a young man's life that require some interdiction, then we will partner with you in bringing corporate America and business entities to the table. The beauty about doing that is threefold. One, mayors know in his or her community what's necessary. They know where the data is, they know where the efforts need to go. 2, the private sector in terms of investment now has very specific and discrete areas to focus their investment that then can be measured from city to city to city in a way that allows you to iterate and innovate to make sure your money is being spent correctly. 3rd, and most importantly, the people on the ground feel that they're receiving not assistance or help, but agency and empowerment from their neighbors. It's not an abstract person coming in to save you. It's you being lifted up from the bottom. And so even putting aside the deterioration that we've seen in the United States and frankly globally in terms of a notion of trust, this type of partnership is more important now than ever, not just for the good it can do, but for the glue that's necessary for any civic society, civil society, or civic infrastructure to flourish. That's why it's very important at this stage.
And turning to the issue of trust in Greece, Mayor Kaminis, would you say that the town hall, there's a palpable lack of trust in municipal authorities that has served as an impediment to these public-private partnerships or not?
Well, at the beginning, maybe yes. But you know, what happens with the city administration, with the mayor, is that you cannot avoid your accountability. You cannot disappear. You cannot escape from that. Once you step out of the city hall, people come to you. They start talking to you. They start complaining. In the city councils, we have, associations of neighborhoods coming there. So you have to explain. So the question of accountability, not only political, administrative accountability, is not a pure formality in the case of a city. You are there. Even in big cities like Athens, you're accountable. So that if you do your job, you build trust. If you don't do your job, people get disappointed, anger, and they yell at you. It's not like a minister. You're not invisible. You're there. So that is how you build trust. And of course, you have to explain and explain and explain. One of our projects through the Athens Partnership was how we wanted to create, because of the refugee crisis, first of all, an observatory for the city. And second, a coordination center, because there are so many NGOs, the government, the region, the municipality working on this issue. So we had the pressing need to coordinate everything. And why? Because we had a problem there. When people started arriving massively in Athens in the summer of 2015 and sleeping in the parks and central squares, we had the problem. We had to protect those people, first of all, give them shelter, but take care of the city also. So that is why we created the first refugee camp. And as the capital of the country, as the first city, we have a moral obligation to lead by example. At the same time, Athens has the moral obligation to show how things should be done. So offering space to create the first refugee camp is also, let's say, a very important political measure that we had to take.
And if I can just interject on this point, and it goes to something I saw yesterday, and I think most of the people here will hear about this tomorrow. Through Libra and Concordia, there's something called the Home Project. And so yesterday I visited a home where there are 10 unaccompanied minors, children, who traveled from war-torn countries by themselves. I'm standing talking to a 17-year-old girl who went through more unspeakable horror than most adults could deal with in their life. All I could see was my daughter. I didn't see an abstract child. I saw my little girl. And the woman who ran the project, that speaks to the importance of local, said that there were some neighbors who were very, very skeptical and resistant to this notion of a refugee and scared. They opened the doors. And all of a sudden, a mother in the neighborhood who had been very scared of what this meant for her neighborhood saw this girl and that girl. And all of a sudden, it wasn't an abstraction. 2 days later, she was back cooking for them in the home, and their defenders. And so again, when you think about the importance of public-private partnerships, it's not just the flexibility, the innovation, the local, the accountability that comes with it. It's the very real, raw essence of politics in the best sense of the word. I need to see you, you need to see me to develop that relationship, even around something as potentially divisive, not potentially, that has been as divisive as the refugee crisis that Greece and Europe has gone through. So credit to the work that you are doing, Nick, and your group, and Mr. Mayor, the leadership you have shown.
And perhaps at this point, Nick, you could talk about the potential. Again and again in Greece, we hear about untapped potential at all levels of society. Perhaps you could speak to that.
No, I mean, listen, thank you, David. I have done absolutely nothing except, except...
Come on, man, sell it.
Be in awe of the people who have done what they've done, and also of the Greeks who have taken these people into their communities. Listen, Greece has been through 9 years, 10 years, 8 years of an economic depression. I think it's important we don't call it a recession anymore. It is a depression. It is longer in length and more severe in percentage terms than the Great Depression in the United States. And obviously in 1929 the world was very different. And so in the world of social media, in the world of sort of, everyone is their own reporter, everyone is their own judge and jury, sort of Greece has gotten an unfair reputation in the world, and the people of Greece have gotten an unfair reputation in the world. Greece is one of the most, and I know I'm Greek, so I'm a little bit biased, but I truly do believe it. Greece and the Greek people are one of the most dynamic, hardworking, entrepreneurial, sort of really reliable people that you will come across. And because of the depression, that sort of well-earned reputation over years has really taken a hit. And so of the work that we try to, Libra and Concordia, mostly Libra, tries to do in Greece, one of the most important things we do is try to lift the people up, sort of give them hope. That is something that is sort of an undefined and unmeasurable quantity, but it's so critical because there's this old saying: you take a Greek out of Greece and they'll be successful anywhere, right? And there are many Greeks who are successful in Greece, but it's been a difficult time here, but we are really doubling down on our investment in the people of this country, because it's always an investment that will return. You will never lose by betting on the Greek people, in our humble opinion. And so that's why we did this summit here. That's why we hope to continue to work here. And that's why we support the work that the mayor and Alexandros have done. And we want to sort of continue that for sure. But it's not easy. It's one of the things I try to do around the world, and I'm very lucky to be able to travel around the world, is explain a little bit more in detail about what has happened here. People, everyone shares responsibility for what's happened to Greece. It's like one of those. In today's world, there's too much black and white, right? You either hear about the Greek crisis, it's the Greeks' fault, they were too lazy, and that's it. No more. That it's the Greek people's fault. Or you hear that it's not, the Greeks have done absolutely nothing wrong, and we're being sort of dealt this fate by no reason of our own. The answer is, of course, somewhere in the middle. But my point here is, let's just say, and I don't believe it, but let's say it was entirely the Greek people's fault. I do not believe it. I want that to be underlined and bolded, if anyone cares what I'm saying. But I do not believe it. But let's say it was. 9 years have gone by. 9 years. Is it not time to help the Greek people start to recover? Is punishment not enough? So
are this cross-sector public-private partnerships, is that the way forward? Can they generate hope in a way that, yeah. I mean, we have unemployment, huge levels of unemployment in Greece, perhaps the biggest problem.
I don't know the numbers, but off the top of my head, I think youth unemployment is high double digits.
Higher than 50%.
Higher than 50% youth unemployment. Absolutely, I think it's a key part of I like to call Greece not an emerging economy, but re-emerging, right? Because it emerged and then it submerged and now it's re-emerging. But I think public-private partnerships are an important part of that re-emergence.
Right, and
Alexandros,
Nick,
I think.
if I may add, and the reason for that is that private-public partnerships engage community stakeholders, which is what David actually didn't allude to, said earlier. And that makes a huge difference. It's different if the government or the municipality comes in with a program, or a corporation or a foundation does a program alone. When you do it together, then by necessity, part of the design is getting buy-in by the community, which means you talk to the community when you design the project. You struggle with the community once you start the project, and actually you measure the success of the project off of the community. If the community transforms, changes, sticks with you, you know you're doing right. If you lose them, you're completely on the wrong track. And I think PPPs may be a unique setup for engaging communities at this level. One very small example to give from one of our projects, the city of Athens is investing $3 million to build infrastructure at the triangle, the commercial triangle at the center of the city of Athens. For those of you who are here, that's between Syntagma, Monastiraki, and Omonia Square. So through the partnership with the mayor, we decided to bring in additional investment to enhance the capital works that the city was going to do. And the capital works involved, among other things, pedestrianizing streets that are legally pedestrian but have not been pedestrianized for years. So one of the first things we started doing was working on the ground with the store owners, telling them, this is what's going to happen. We want to turn this area into a pedestrian zone way before we actually do the capital work, so that people understand how it works, so that in the beginning, these people were like, they wouldn't even listen to the city or anyone. They were like, yeah, we've heard this before. Yeah, you're going to do it for a month and then disappear. To make a long story short, we started pedestrianizing one street at a time, just to test it out in April. And we have already store owners who were completely not believing us, saying that now there's a reason for me to come to work in the morning and smile, which is what Nick was saying. Now that's transformation. When somebody responds to that, you can work with that person, and that person then becomes a partner to the project and is going to defend the street from the mechaniki, the motorbike, or the car, or the...
Because it's a good example, because, first of all, through the Athens Partnership, through those partnerships, you can bring in the best experts. You can pay them, and you can hire them, because through the administrative procedures, it's impossible. So we brought people that worked for the Olympic Games in Athens. The best days of Athens was during the Olympic Games. So we brought those people now, and at the same time, you create capacity building in the city administration. Our staff, they become more enthusiastic because we bring them together with experts, with people they respect, and can offer, their expertise. It's very, very important for the capacity building of the city administration.
So David, do you feel that these public-private initiatives, My Brother's Keeper being perhaps the foremost one that the Obama administration is involved in now, can really make people, in the words of President Obama, feel that they can make a difference, that they've hitched their wagon to something bigger than themselves?
Yeah, so I do, and the central focus of what the Obama Foundation is going to be doing, not only over the course of this year, but for hopefully decades to come, is the identification, the training, and the connecting of citizen leaders in the United States and throughout the world. People who will go back into their communities and be the central leaders to do things like you just described, to do the types of work like the Home Project, because in so doing, not only are they doing good work, but they're doing actually something that's much more important. They then become tangible examples of what citizenship requires. Too often, a discussion about citizenship simply comes down to the important discussion of what my rights are. And the discussion about what my responsibilities are outside of voting are infrequent. And so the central idea of citizen leaders, especially in an era through social media where the atomization of what individuals, the power they have and how they feel themselves as part of a society, is more central than ever. And so any solution, be it political, societal, civic, the engagement of public-private partnerships has to begin with the new power that every single person has via their ability to communicate, partner, network with anyone else on the globe in a way that's never been possible ever in human history. And so now the vehicle of a public-private partnership puts the citizen leader at the middle. He or she goes to the community and doesn't tell them what they need, but listens to what they need, because that's the way you build consensus. Then you grab the power of government in the scope that it brings to act, in the capital and expertise of the private and nonprofit and academic sector, to engage in a way that is in fulfillment of what needs to happen. The result of that, good things happen, trust increases, the view of society is enhanced, and we can get out of this period that the world, the United States, and frankly the world has been in, not just since the economic crisis, but going back in the United States, median household income hasn't really risen since 1980.
Wow.
And so when you then think about what people throughout the country have been feeling and going through, and then to see that government and the private sector aren't responding to their needs, and being prone to, via social media, direct appeals to them that sometimes can be manifested in a bad way and sometimes in a good way. This new creation of a civic infrastructure via public-private partnerships or an engagement of citizen leader is the work of our time, and it's more important today, frankly, in my opinion, than it's ever been.
And perhaps we should give the last note to Nicholas, and perhaps you could expand on why you decided to hold Concordia's first summit in Europe here in Athens.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone. If I could just take 20 seconds and just sort of build on what David said and maybe sort of promote Concordia a little bit. One of the reasons why we started Concordia is because we saw that often governments and business and NGOs and people who have worked within government and who are working within government and people who are working within business, they often can be speaking the same language but speaking another language. And so we look at ourselves as sort of the a combination of an eHarmony type situation where we bring these groups together, and then a marriage counselor, because it's often the simplest of reasons why good things don't get done. From people working in government being too busy, literally. You worked in the White House, you can't breathe. I've never worked there, but I've been told. So an organization such as Concordia sort of aims to be the force that brings the two together and really sticks with them as their partnership, marriage continues. We chose Athens because we view Greece as an integral part of Europe. We view the timing as necessary. Greece Greece will recover, and we just wanted to be able to do our small part to bring people from around the world, and there's people from dozens of countries here, many of whom who have never been to Greece before. We just wanted to bring them here to see the beauty of the country, to meet some of its people, and to really help dispel any negative reputations that Greece has gotten over the years. So that's why we did it.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.